listening to, guess what? Radical Acceptance, the number one podcast. Yes, the number one podcast in this country on Mental Health News Radio Network. I'm your host, Jeff Newman, and the show's purpose, because I always have a purpose and a why, is to inspire, to motivate, and to jumpstart your day and success to help you become better every day. I want you to think about this before we get started with Beth, that this podcast is something that I want you to put in context of your personal life, your relationships, your personal and physical health, perhaps. And you could also slide in your business productivity. So please just appease me and think about that. If advocacy for mental health, addiction, and suicide are to have an impact, for me, it must belong to those who join it, not for those who just lead it. In other words, a call to action, an idea worth spreading, so you and those you love can work towards their constant and never-ending improvement. We're going to learn and heal today together with our guest, Beth.
Beth Badour.
Badour.
Yes.
Well, I knew Badour. For some reason, I didn't write it down. That's sorry.
Okay, no worries.
And this is her story. So let's begin. Hi, pleasure having you here, Beth.
Hey,
welcome.
Jeff. We always have a good time, and when we're together, and we like to have fun. So I'm going to start off with that a little bit. I am Beth Badour, and I like to say that I'm rich and famous. However, I'm not there yet. However, Jeff is helping me to get famous, at least. So again, my name is Beth, and I am a mom of two wonderful men now. They're not boys, off on their own, doing their own thing. And I love life. I have a lot of joy with life. And I love to paint. Painting is just one of the things I adore doing. It's almost meditative for me. I enjoy yoga, dancing, being outside, anything that is connected to this earth or to nature, and learning new things all the time. I'm always about that. And I am a medicine woman. I am a healer. So there you go, in a nutshell.
I love it. And I think if my memory serves correctly, we met on an organization in California called Thought Leader, and the CEO is Taylor Conrad, for practicing to be on stage for a TED Talk, and which is so exciting for those who want to be on stage and maybe share their story. Mm-hmm. Go check it out, Thought Leader. So, Beth, to start our conversation, this is an easy question, I think. Mm-hmm. Why today on the topic of healing or traumatic wounds, something that your story tells, which you really didn't share yet, but why today? Why is it important for you? And then share that story.
Well, it's important for me because it took me on my path from feeling like a victim, like I was wounded, like due to life circumstances, I really felt like a victim. And I had made significant changes, and I had decided to stay on this earth when my son invited me to stay. I was thinking about going on hospice, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And I decided if I was going to stay, like the topic is keeping both feet on the earth, just not 1 foot on and 1 foot off. And I went from feeling like I can always get out of here, I can always, commit suicide or whatever to get out of here, or to go on to hospice at one point in time. And I said, if he's inviting me to stay, I'm going to stay. I'm going to live in joy and not feel like a victim, to be victorious and to really enjoy my life. And I give thanks to Jonathan. And I think it's very important. There's so many heavy things going on the earth right now, just not in America, but everywhere, that we need to hear about what we can do so we don't feel a victim to life circumstances that are around us, and to feel like we're a champion in our lives. I think it's very important to share that.
Right. So what I'm picking up is contribution is a key factor for not only yourself, and when I say yourself to the listeners, it's a rhetorical you. I'm not pointing fingers at you directly or Beth or myself. It's a factor, it's a vehicle to maybe branch out into other areas personally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and obviously financially. So I love that you said that. And I guess your son is a godsend because he may have been the catalyst, even though this, I'm going to say something maybe powerful, and you take it from there. Even though if he wasn't there to do what he did, if you really thought about it and sat in your pain and said to yourself a different question, or you gave it a different meaning, do you think you may have been able to radically accept that you need to seek help and maybe do it in reverse, go to him and ask him to do this for you? So you're actually telling him how to support you in a sense, because most people don't know how to support their loved ones. They'll advise, they'll try to fix them. But if you go to your loved one and you say to them a certain, I need this from you, and this is how I need for you to give it to me. Mm-hmm. Now you're instructing them, but more importantly, you're teaching them. So yes. What do you think about that? Do you think you could have sat by yourself, maybe in your pain, and develop the initial foundation?
That's a very interesting question, because for me, it's hard to look back and say, coulda, woulda, shoulda. I don't like to should on myself. Right. So I'm so glad he did. And we had to have some conversations around that too. Would I have changed my mind? Possibly. However, what I was thinking is my situation is I found out in my 50s, I had chronic kidney disease that was at stage 5. And the day that I went to the doctor, he said, honey, you got to do dialysis. And I've always told my family, my doctors, my friends, that when it was my time to go, because I knew I had kidney disease, I just didn't realize it was that bad. I didn't really have any symptoms, that I was going to go on hospice. And the reason I was saying that was because I assumed, we all know, well, I think we do, and I'm not going to say it, what assuming does to us, but I assumed that my life was going to be hard, that it was going to be painful, that I wasn't going to be able to work, that people would have to take care of me, because I worked at a skilled nursing facility, working with patients that were in pain, that had diagnoses of kidney disease, on dialysis, and they didn't want to exercise. And I had to be their cheerleader and explain to them why they had to do it. And I felt, and I still do feel, that if people feel like that they're at their end of the life and they have a chronic condition that's giving them pain or whatnot, that they should have a choice of whether or not they want to go on hospice, or if they want to get a physician's assistance for suicide. Now, assisted suicide, to help you relieve your pain to die. I was not at that point yet, but I said, when I get to that point, this is what I want. So I really was adamant about that. And it took him to say, Mom, I need you to stay here. People love you. Please stay here. You're full of joy. You're happy. There's more for you to do here. So at that moment, I decided I have to stay here. No matter what, I need to stay here. And I don't want to feel like a victim, where every time I run into a situation that I think I can't handle, or I assume it's going to be a certain way, to take a step back, to not play victim to that anymore, to say, look at all the life experience I've had. I've been able to do it to this point. There's people to support me. I'm going to move forward. So the caveat to that is I had to go back and tell Jonathan, when he was a young man and going out on his own, you don't have to stay here and take care of Mama. I didn't have you for that. I was the vessel to have you, for you to go out and do your thing. So now it's time for you to do your thing. And I don't want you to feel guilty. Yes, you've heard me say that you were the reason I stayed. And what I learned is, initially, you were the reason I stayed. And then in the process, I learned that I loved myself and I was staying here for me. So
Oh,
that gave him the opportunity to not feel guilty, to not feel like he couldn't go, and he could go. It gave him permission. So yes, I would say that's radical acceptance in that moment. And that's part of my program with my life coaching. Is part of it is the acceptance.
yeah, I get that. And you said that beautifully, very eloquently as well. In most of the podcasts I do, it always comes up, and it's not because it's the name of this podcast. The majority of people who come on who want to guide others in this podcast, they bring up the radical acceptance. Maybe not radical, but the word acceptance.
Yes.
They also bring up the word awareness, which is key. They also bring up the word action, which is so powerful. And there's a few other words they bring up, but you mentioned another one, that you had to take the pain, and through pain, you develop possibly some coping skills on how to practice that pain so you can get to a certain level, possibly, and then be patient, knowing that because you do it on Monday, Tuesday, things aren't going to be like the sky doesn't open up. Can you maybe explain or talk about pain, practice, and patience in
practice and patience? Okay, pain, practice, and patience. Guide me if I go off straight here a little bit.
Take one example. It could be anything.
I'll talk a little bit here. Pain, your body gives you signals of why you're having pain. There's something going on there, whether it's a physical pain, emotional pain. However, it's a choice of if we suffer or not. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to suffer if you have pain, but with a lot of instances in our lives, it is a choice if we're going to suffer around what's going on with the physical, emotional, spiritual pain. And practicing, there's so many different things to practice. I practice meditation. I practice yoga, tai chi, breathing exercises.
Let me interrupt for a minute. When I say practice, yes, it's all what you just said. I'm referring to consistency and making it a habit. We can't just do it one day.
Right.
And
exactly.
Then practice that way. Also, it could be yoga, it could be meditation, it could be, but if you're going to do yoga, you do it every day.
Yes.
That's the practice.
Patience is a big key to everything in life. In America, we want everything right now, right this second. We don't even have attention spans. If we don't like this podcast, we're going to move on really quick. And to learn things, to be patient with yourself, it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's helpful if you have people to support you and to remind you. I have a lot of friends that if I start playing victim, they'll say, Beth, I'll let you vent for a little bit, but I'm not going to jump on that train with you of victimhood. Let's figure this out together. Let's see positive things here and practice those positive things. Yes, consistency is good with everything. Even with depression, I've learned that if I can be more consistent with my self-care and having a routine, the times that I get depressed, having those routines help. So I'm not going on that roller coaster ride of having to go really down before I come up again.
So let me ask you with the next statement of, you mentioned self-care. If I were to say to you, and then give a little explanation. If I were to say to you, Beth, my self-care or your self-care is not something that we were given. Our self-care is something that we claim. How would you answer to that, and why?
How would I answer to that? Yes, I believe what you're saying is true. Now, in some households, and I think it's happening more now, compared to maybe when we were raised, or people, like let's say in the 50s were raised. I was raised in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but it was a very regimented way. And there wasn't a lot of talk about self-care. But nowadays I'm hearing more parents talk about they don't say self-care to their 5-year-old, but they're more aware of the importance of taking care of themselves, putting themselves first for some self-care, because that's not being selfish. I don't see it as being selfish. You got to keep the foundation of yourself, your marriage, whatever. So I see some people doing that right now. Why it's so important to keep your energy up. When your cup is empty, you can't give to anybody else. So you better fill that cup up with whatever fills up your cup. And I'm not talking about get an alcoholic drink and fill up your cup. I'm talking about energy wise, spiritually, physically. I love to dance. So it's good for me to continue to dance. If I'm feeling depressed, I need to get off the couch, out there and moving in the universe, outside, getting some sunshine, just not continuing to sit on the couch, poor as me. Now there's times where, you should rest on the couch, but if you're doing it because you're depressed, that's a different thing. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the question is answered through you, and I give it the meaning I want to give it anyways, right?
There you go.
You say you dance because that gives you the energy, perhaps. So I could reframe that by saying motion creates emotion.
Yes.
And the more we move our bodies, especially if, let's say, Jeff is challenged with bipolar, which he is, I need to maintain a certain energy level. And the way I do that is I exercise, or I just stand up, or I smile a lot. I do have muscles in my face. We tend to forget that, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's exercise. If I stretch my face for 5 minutes, I don't have to go run around the block 20 hours. I can just stretch my face as exercise.
And I'm not hearing you for some reason. All of a sudden, I'm not hearing you, Jeff. And I didn't touch anything.
Oh,
there we go.
That's because I was on mute. How did I do that? Oh my gosh, did you not hear anything I said?
No, I heard most of it, just the last one or two little sentences.
Wow, I don't know.
No, I would have said stop.
Yeah.
No, we're good. We're
incredible.
Good. So,
I hate
can you go back to say those things again, or do we need to move on?
No, we're not going to say it again. I think the listeners get it. That motion creates emotion. So move your body as a mental coping skill. But you did use the word selfish a few minutes ago. And I love that word selfish, because you applied it to yourself by either, positive self-talk, or loving yourself, or doing something for you. A lot of people would say that, or you say to yourself, oh, that's selfish. What would you think by being selfish, you become selfless by giving to others, right? So I need to be selfish for me. And be really loving to myself and compassionate and have empathy and really take it to the next level in a strong intention, because then I can give to Beth, or I can give to my kids, because again, and you've heard this expression so many times, so it's kind of like repetitive, that I can't give somebody something if I don't have it within myself. So with that, I know that you have a program, and you call it the 5-step program, which probably can relate to your circumstances and mental health and physical health, and how that program, let's say, would help others if they followed or were guided by you without the advice. We don't want advice. How does that work?
Well, it's a 5-step program to a success path. If you're feeling a victim in your life, if you've had trauma, if you feel wounded, and it doesn't have to be this huge, big thing. It could be something small that you want to work through. And if you want to be a champion in your life and to feel like you're a victor, you have gotten over feeling like you're a victim to your life circumstances. You already spoke about a lot of those things. First, you have to be aware of something. right? Either
Right.
your family brings it to you, Beth, you're drinking too much. When I say Beth, I'm just saying you're drinking too much, or you find in yourself like, wow, when I was in that marriage, I was passive aggressive and that didn't seem to work too well. So first you have to be aware, and then you have to accept where you're at. So how do you change if you don't accept where you're at? Now, I'm not saying to stay passive aggressive or to stay in over drinking, those kind of things, but you have to be in acceptance of where you are. Then the next thing is action. However, if you do the same action over and over, what are you going to get? The same results, right? So what I call it is stepping left or shifting left. Sometimes you can have that within inside yourself, through really deep meditation, reading books on self-help, going to your counselor, those kind of things. But most people need some guidance when they're first getting to that point, or at least validation. Sometimes I don't need as much guidance anymore, but I need validation, either within myself or from somebody else. And that's part of the thing that I focus in on when I do transformational life coaching with people. And after you practice that and you're patient with yourself to work at that, because it's like using a new muscle. If you've never used your bicep muscle before, and then you go to the gym and you're trying to lift a 500-pound weight with your arm, it's not going to work. So you have to use that muscle. And then it's not only using that muscle of changing your thinking, changing your mindset, changing your behaviors, changing your emotions, your energy level, your vibration. You can change your mind all you want. You can smile all you want, but if you don't change your energy and your vibration, things are probably going to stay pretty much the same in your life. So you have to learn to trust that process, to trust your gut level, to trust your intuition, that when you're practicing something new, that it might not feel normal or secure or safe at first, but practice with little things and then practice with people that you feel safe around. Just keep practicing. And then when you get in a situation where somebody's bombarding you with something, or a situation like with the kidney disease, when I found out I had the kidney disease, I would say I had denial almost at first, and grief, and had to go through all those things. But finally, after Jonathan came to talk to me, I came around. So I learned to trust myself, not to fall back into those patterns of feeling like a victim. And boy, I could have, because I got a kidney transplant that didn't work from day one. And at that point I could have said, I tried this, it didn't work, I'm done. And I'm like, nope, that's just one more step, I had to go through, and now I'm going to keep going.
Okay. So we have the 5 steps. You spoke about, to just reiterate for our listeners, trust, stepping left or right, action, acceptance, and awareness.
Yes.
5 great steps. So my question, in a little role play, I'm the victim. All right. I am the victim. I don't know of any of those 5 steps yet. I've heard of them, but I don't pay attention because I'm so caught into myself, or my addictions, my chronic depressions. I need to get a kidney, so I'm going through all my emotional states. When I hear 5 steps, initially for me, that is overwhelming. Oh my gosh, there's a lot.
I can feel that.
Yeah, there's a lot of work, even though I know so for my purposes, Beth, what is the first baby step? I know I have to do all these 5 steps, but I have to start somewhere. But
right,
I can start with a baby step to get used to it, because it's not that threatening to me and it's not overwhelming. So what would you say to this audience to start? Why don't you think about doing this, and we'll compound it as we go along? What's a baby step where I wouldn't, and I'm using me as the victim. So what would you say to me?
So if you came to me and we figured out that a major point with you is you don't feel supported, you don't feel like anybody cares about you, you're in pain over that, just feeling emotionally alone and physically alone, those kind of things that you can't reach out for support. You don't even know how to ask for support.
Which I was, by the way. I was there.
Okay.
It's called chronic depression.
Okay. And your goal is that you want to feel supported. You want to see that feeling of support around you. So you got the one end where you're feeling like you're a victim to all these circumstances and you don't know how to reach out and get support. You don't even know how to begin that conversation, but at least you know that you need support. And then you want to feel supported. So you can start off even just baby steps. If you are one that isn't used to asking for support, what about if tomorrow you go to the grocery store and they say, can we take your groceries out to the car? And normally you would say, no, I'm good. I can do it myself. But instead you say, oh yes, that would be so nice. Will you help me? And it's helping you, but it's also helping another person, because the other person might need to feel listened to. You might need to feel listened to. So when you go out with that person to your car, hopefully it's a sunny day. They're getting out of the room, the building that's, probably bad lighting, those kind of things. So you have a chance to go out and explore that. Then the next time I would tell you, now go to the store.
Well, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take it one by one, because I want to make it very simple for our listeners.
Okay.
Okay. So I give up the control of taking my groceries and bringing it into my car, because I'm a control freak, and nobody needs to do this for me, because I could always, I can do it. So leave me alone. However, so what I do is I first I give up my control and I let go. The second thing I do is I let go of my belief that I am the only one who can do it and do it right, and I don't need anybody's help. So I change my belief that the person in the grocery store can do it, and I accept that. So what I'm suggesting is I have limited beliefs, and I need to look at the belief and know that I can selfishly help myself, but selflessly help somebody else.
Exactly. Because we usually feel better if we can help support somebody else.
Right. Contribution.
Yeah. Contribution. Yes.
Giving more than yourself.
Then if you feel confident doing that, then the next step would be the next time you go into a grocery store and they don't ask you and you have a bunch of groceries, ask them politely. Can someone please help me out to my car with my groceries? Same thing. So now you're asking for that support, and it's something small, right? Just take the groceries out. That's, I go to Publix and they do that for me all the time. I don't even have to ask, and then when you get good at that, now this is the big thing. You have a gallon of milk. You go up to the cashier. What do you say? You want to ask for support. You want to start getting support. I would like to ask for some support to carry my milk out. And they might look at you a little funny, but just be confident, be bold. And most of the time they'll do it for you. So if you can ask for support along those lines, and that's something, we do, most of us have to do is get groceries, unless they're sent to our house. Now, a lot of people have it sent to their house. That would be some small way that you could learn that, yes, you can get support and how to ask for support.
Okay, so what I want the listeners to do is grab a piece of paper and a pen, and for your homework after this podcast, and I'm serious, I know. I am giving you an assignment on a sticky note, 2 things that you can maybe rid of by changing a belief or your limited beliefs. And things that you can let go or lose. You don't have to have that control. 2 things, and why those 2 things would benefit you more than what you're doing with those 2 things presently. Just 2, or take 1 thing. Let's start with 1 and see what change or how that feels when you do that. Because when you change a belief, you change your life. Because we only know one way to do it, because we've been doing it for 50 plus years. And this is the only way Jeff knows how to do it. You know, that's his way. But what if Jeff asked himself a question like, what else could this mean? Or, you know, Jeff, how else could you do it if you could do it any other way? And you change it. So Beth is right on with that, the 5-step program. But I gave you an assignment. And then if something changes, a feeling, a thought, an emotion, a reaction, a result, then maybe you should pick up on that, because, success leaves a lot of clues. Success leaves clues. So if you're successful with it, that's a clue. Maybe I should do other things and build on the initial. So give us some last comments, Beth, before I give mine. What would you have to say to an audience who is both maybe in a position of challenge mental health and challenge physical health, either alone in one of those, or maybe at the same time with both of those? What's your take on that, so somebody could say, wow, I'm glad I listened to Beth, or I'm glad I heard Beth. I'm not saying we have to listen to Beth, but at least I heard Beth. What would that be, do you think?
I want to just say one thing about what we were just speaking about. So when I'm practicing things like that, I like to have fun with it. So I say I'm researching or experimenting. So when I'm changing my behavior, I'm just researching on this. I'm just experimenting to see what happens, and then take note of that pattern. Yeah, that's always helped me, again, because I like to play and I like to have fun. So my work sometimes is my play, because I like that, So don't make assumptions in your life. Try to rule out assumptions. If you think you're assuming something, check it out. Check it out to see if you're right. Because for me, that changed things. I thought life was going to be one way. And then somebody said, stay here. And I listened to them. And I had to change to say, every time something goes wrong with my kidneys and everything, I'm not going to jump on board and say, oh, well, see, it didn't work. I'm just going to go on hospice anyways. Forget about this. So check out those assumptions in life, definitely. And if you want to make a change, you can't do the same thing over and over, because you'll get the same result. Do whatever you need to get support. Ask for support, read books, go to workshops, get a counselor. If you're really depressed, you may need some medication. I believe there's, a good thing to be medicated if you need that. And I'm not telling everybody they need to go out and get medication, but please definitely go and get support one way or another. Yeah, definitely.
I love what she's saying. And again, it's suggestions, and she's not saying you should do it, but hear what she says to do that. It's a beautiful thing. And I know everybody knows these things already. That's the funny part, right, Beth? That whatever we said in this 35 minutes, all these people know everything we said. Oh, I know that, Jeff. I know that. I know that. But what they lacked, and you use the word, is the action part. And if you follow through, take the pain, practice, and then be patient, then possibly you will be the golden child. So that was wonderful. I really like this. So I thank you for being here. I really do. It took us a while to get you here. I think we tried once before, and then we had to cancel it for some odd reason. So where can somebody find you if they want to contact you and talk about the 5-step?
They can find me at my website, thecreativelifebydesign.com. And if you want to email me, the best way to email me is beth@thecreativelifebydesign.com. So those are two definite ways. You can also find me on Facebook Beth Badour, Never Say Never, all these different links on Facebook with all the different things I'm involved with. So for anybody who has a chronic disease or a kidney disease, I want you to look at me. Would you think if you met me out on the streets that I had a kidney transplant because I had kidney disease? I had it out. I'm on dialysis 3 times a week. I doubt you would think that. I think you would say, look at that smile. Look how radiant she is. She's so positive. And that's what I'm experiencing in my life now. And you can too, because I was thinking about suicide a couple of times in my life. I never tried it and never followed through, but I was that depressed. And I'm no longer that depressed. I get sad. Sometimes I get depressed, but I don't go back there anymore. It's not the roller coaster ride anymore.
Yes, those on the suicide wave, it's very powerful. I too had ideations in my story. So yeah, reach out to Beth. And all those contact emails I will be putting in the show notes. So when you go to this podcast on the Mental Health News Radio Network and just search Radical Acceptance, you'll see the show. Click on, listen to it. It's only 30 minutes out of your life. Wow, 30 minutes to change my life. I don't know if I can do that. That's too much time for me to spend, right? Listen to it, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. So I'd like to say, to our listeners, thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in to Radical Acceptance. Again, my name is Jeff Newman. And to learn more about me, you can go to my website, the 3 W's at Rome, or like the city Rome, rometraining.com. Or I too go to my Facebook group. And I get a kick saying it each time because it's corporate crazies in an imperfectly perfect world, so there's a lot there. So I end by saying live large, love life. And thank you again, Beth. Thank you again, listeners, for tuning in.